was common situations.
Many of us don't know that Blackwater is already operating in the United States. In New Orleans, in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, Jeremy Scahill reports that there were contractors shooting at civilians in Katrina.
I was in New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and I saw Blackwater mercenaries speeding up and down the streets in unmarked cars, heavily armed with M4 machine guns, flak jackets, other weapons strapped to their legs.
The nation's largest private security company may build a world-class training facility in Kootenai County. The Idaho Post Academy has signed a letter of intent to work with Blackwater if the company decides to build in the region.
We feel Blackwater's reputation will hurt Idaho's reputation.
This is the thing that keeps me awake nights. Out of all these steps, when I travel, I'm in Chicago, people say, oh yeah, Blackwater just established a beachhead in Illinois at the mouth of the Mississippi River. I'm in Southern California, people in San Diego are like, yeah, we're just fighting this really hard fight because Blackwater wants to establish a presence along the border, getting into border control. And their business plan calls for them to be increasingly active, monitoring protests. Their website has a focus on Midtown Manhattan. A paramilitary force. You can't close down an open society without one.
We've got a crisis. We're at war. The enemy is plotting to attack us. This proposal will allow us to gather intelligence information on that enemy that we otherwise would not get.
Another sign of a closing society is when government starts to surveil ordinary citizens. Mussolini pioneered this. Hitler set up neighborhood spies. East Germany developed the Stasi, and China today has the Dangan system. You need a surveillance apparatus to close an open society. Most of us know that our emails can be read and our phone calls can be listened into. But most people, I would have to say quite naively, think, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why does it matter? All you have to do is read history to know that in a closing society, you don't have to have done anything wrong. If there's a surveillance apparatus, they can listen in, and as other institutions erode, they can simply say you've done something wrong or use leverage through the surveillance to intimidate you. The Stasi, the secret police of East Germany, kept everyone in a state of fear and silence. For years, everyone thought they had a Stasi file on them. After the wall came down, it turned out that only 10% of people actually had a file on them. But all it takes is to know you're under surveillance to keep you scared and frightened. So this is one of the steps that I have a very personal relationship to, and I have a lot of feelings about it, for the following reason. For a year and a half, every time I would try to take a plane, I would get my boarding pass, and it would have a quadruple S high security threat mark on it. And they would take me out of the line and do that whole extra security check thing. And I kept asking, what's up with this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And finally, this nice young TSA agent said, oh, you're on the list. And I'm like, the list? I'm on the list? How was Nazi Germany able to round up so many Jews so quickly? Because they had mechanized the list. Again, how did Pinochet manage to round up mass arrests? Mass arrests are always a hallmark of a closing society. Thousands, tens of thousands of people in a notorious soccer stadium. The list. Every closing society keeps a list. So I researched it, and it turns out that I was in very good company. As of July of 2008, there are over 1 million Americans on the watch list. 20,000 names get added each month.
1 million entries. Now, there can't possibly be 1 million terrorists in the United States. We know, for example, there are lots of famous people on that list, don't belong in there. Senator Edward Kennedy, Nelson Mandela, peace activists, nuns, lots of people on the list.
After doing some research, I discovered that I was in very good company. Many innocent, outspoken U.S. citizens are on the watch list.
We understand that a new member is on the watch list, Drew Griffin of CNN.
How did I get on this list? Well, the TSA is adamant it's not even me, even though it is me getting stopped at the airports.
And my question is, why would Drew Griffin's name come on the watch list post his investigation of TSA? What is the basis of this sudden recognition that Drew Griffin is a terrorist? What a curious and interesting and troubling phenomenon.
David Antoon, highly decorated Vietnam War veteran, served his country bravely, criticized the Iraq War.
I mean, you can take WMDs and the Gulf of Tonkin, and you could see the manipulation of information to bring the American public into accepting and approving of a war that really had no basis. So I started writing about that. It wasn't long thereafter I noticed that every time I would purchase a ticket and board a flight, I would receive boarding passes with 4 S's on them. Every time I travel, every time my children travel, every time my wife travels. Every time my 86-year-old mother travels. They're all on the watch list. So, you know, it's an inconvenience, but it's insulting.
And so when you want to close down an open society, you keep everyone under surveillance so that people increasingly become too frightened to stand up and speak.
To one of these meetings came a young FBI agent, bringing with him, concealed among groceries, a portable radio transmitter.
The ties of blood that bind us to the German fatherland can never be broken.
The fifth thing that always happens in a closing society is that there's increased infiltration of citizens groups, and this is against the law. The ACLU has many documented cases of illegal infiltration of groups just like this, and in fact there's probably someone here today. Hello! You know, I hope your audio is working well.
In 2004, at the Republican National Convention, the New York police spied illegally on anti-war protesters. There were also reports that the FBI was illegally spying on other nonviolent groups of Americans, meeting in churches and in Quaker houses of worship.
State police documents obtained by the ACLU reveal that undercover cops infiltrated local groups opposed to the death penalty and the war.
The internal documents show that nearly 36 times, undercover state police officers covertly took part in protests, like this one in November of 2005.
Sports writer David Zirin was part of a group that successfully pushed for a moratorium on the death penalty in the state of Maryland. What he didn't know was that the state police had sent undercover agents to monitor this group of American citizens' legal activities.
In the meetings was somebody who was known to us as Lucy. And Lucy would sit there. She was, the word that keeps coming to mind was peppy. Like she would sit there with a big smile on her face and ask lots of questions and take notes. It was always the most basic questions like, wow, why are we doing this? Why about, like the kind of questions that you're happy that somebody who's new to a group asks.
And he found out later that it was Lucy who was the spy.
It's obvious that they made the conclusion that nothing illegal was going on here, and yet they continued to monitor our email list. They continued to come to our meetings. That's the thing that's so upsetting about this, is that